you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the CLEAVE build, the Stamina Sorcerer for the Dragonhold DLC. Now this was first released last update as a new build to the channel, and it's been very, very successful so far, and it's not going to disappoint this update either. Now the build is pretty much as it was before in terms of its design. It has very, very high area of effect damage and very good single target, but of course the more targets involved in the fight, the more single target you actually get, and that will make more sense when we get to the gear if you haven't seen this before. So first of all, we're going to go into the stats, and then I'm going to explain all the skills and such and where they all come from. Let's put our buffs on, pop a potion real quick. We're on 16k health, 32k max stam, and 2,181 stam recovery, which is insane, and we have 16.4 resistances, both spell and physical. Now, we are, of course, splitting our attributes. We are using 28 points into health and 36 into stamina. The reason being is we are deliberately using the lava foot soup food. Now, this is usually used as dummy food, basically, if people either want to A, cheese something, or B, demonstrate some form of extra sustain. Whichever one of the two you fall into the category of, entirely up to you. However, in actual content, if you want to use this, you'll end up with about 11-12k health, which is not very good at all. So we split our attributes, and we are actually actively using this food for the booster recovery and flat stamina. So instead of it being just for the dummy, this is something that we are actually using. And rightly so as well, because we do need high recovery, especially if we're going to keep spamming these expensive skills. But that will make a lot more sense when we get to the passive, because there are bonuses to that as well. Now, of course, we're using the Shadow Mundustone, and we're a stage 4 vampire. You can drop this a bit if you want, it's entirely up to you, but I preference stage 4. Now, this is a choice for you. You don't have to have this if you don't want to, but I will go over the passages as to why I choose this. So I'm going to go into the skills. I will explain these in detail, explain where they come from, what you need to morph them into, and of course their application. If you already know all this, then of course you're welcome to skip. But if you do skip and start asking questions that I have already answered in the comment section below, I won't be replying to them. So it's at your own risk. First of all, this skill was changed. Bound Armaments is absolutely insane. It's in the Daedric Summoning skill line, 5th ability you unlock in this skill line, so you do need to get some of these other skills first just to unlock it. Starts off as Bound Armor, morph it to Bound Armaments. Now, this used to just give us the max stamina and light attack damage, which it still does, just for being on your bar. But before, it used to give us a block mitigation bonus if we activated it. That no longer applies. Instead, if you activate it, you are granted a buff for 40 seconds, and each light attack, counting up to 4, will then prep a new active skill. Now, you can fire this when you get 4 procs, or you can fire it when you have 1, 2, or 3. You can fire it whenever you want, but the duration of the actual buff is 40 seconds. So how does this work? Activate it, and you'll see on my bottom right-hand side of the buffs there's a timer counting down to 40. So if you reapply it, it'll start from 40 again. Now, what you need to do is just hit with light attacks, and you'll see a new version of it. It's now gone a bright pink or almost purple color. And you can see a 1 in it. Now there's a 2 in it. And there's a 3. And now there's a 4. And when you get to 4, you can actually see there's daggers above my head. And you can launch them at the target by activating it. Now again, you can do that with 1 dagger. And just fire 1, which is hovering above my head. You can do it with 2. You can do it with 3. Or you can do it with 4. So all you have to make sure you do is keep up your light attacks, then reactivate the skill, and these daggers, which stay with you the whole time, even from range, will fire at the target. That is a massive change to the skill, a very welcome one in fact as well. It's a very awesome ability, but you must keep this buff up as well. So while you're doing light attacks, you activate it again and it fires the daggers, but it doesn't reapply this duration unless there's no procs stacked. So in your rotation, you want to make sure that every time that is ready to fire 4, you fire them all, and then after them build up 4 more. But if it runs out, you must reapply it before you can use the skill again. It's very much like the Grim Focus from the Nightblade, where you have a constant buff and you get bonuses from light attacks, then you get to fire it when it's ready, but you have to make sure that this does stay active all the time. If it falls off, it's not the end of the world. Just make sure you get it back on quickly so you can then start stacking up these flying daggers again. Again, look very carefully above my head. You can't miss them. 4 daggers hovering above my head. You can even fire on the bow bar if you want. It will launch 4 daggers doing direct damage per hit. That is new to us. That is in our rotation. It will make a lot more sense when we get there, but hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Very, very cool skill. Next up is Barbed Trap, of course. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. 4th ability you unlock starts off as Trap Beast, morph it to Barbed Trap. Very simple. Put it on the ground, underneath the target, and it will pop and immobilize them. If they can't be immobilized, it will still fire, and it will do damage over time for 18 seconds, and it will give us minor force, increasing all of our critical damage done by 10%. So not only does this do decent physical damage, but it also gives us a buff as well. You've got to keep this up 100% of the time. Next up is, of course, Carve. Very, very important skill. Not just for the first initial damage over time that you might think it does. This is important for AOE as well. So, this is in the two-hander skill line. 3rd ability you unlock starts off as Cleave, morph it to Carve. The other morph for this will grant you a damage shield. This one will grant you a bleed. This is very simple. You activate it. Anyone caught in that conal area of effect in front of you will get a bleed on them, as well as the initial hit. As you can see, he's got a damage over time on him now. Also, in area of effect, they all get a bleed. Every single one of them. So in area of effect, this is incredibly important. It will be used as a spammable in certain situations, but for the most part, you want to make sure this is up at least once every 10 seconds. That will make more sense when we get to the gear. It's very, very important. Next up is, of course, Wrecking Blow. Now, this is our main spammable. This is in a two-hander skill line as well. 1st ability to unlock starts off as Uppercut, morph it to Wrecking Blow. When you activate this, you will wind up a swing for 0.8 seconds, so you can't actually interrupt it, and if you do, it won't fire. And it will hit the enemy with direct damage for quite a large amount of physical damage, and it will also grant you Empower for 5 seconds, meaning your next light attack will be 40% stronger. So, all you need to do is this, and it will hit him. Then you light attack straight afterwards, because it's empowered, then you hit him again. And repeat. Very, very strong, especially if you crit. That light attack is essential, because don't forget, we do have our bound armaments, and every time we do light attack, it will give us an additional stack. And as you can see, when you get to 4, that's when you can fire them. You can fire it before if you want, but you don't have to. So that's very, very important. Very, very simple application. Don't try and do this too fast. It does have a channel or cast time, so you can miss light attacks if you don't time it properly, so it takes a bit of practice. Next up is Reverse Slice, also in our two-hander skill line. This is our Execute. It's the 4th ability to unlock. Starts off as Reverse Slash. Morph it to Reverse Slice. Yes, Executioner does more single target damage at Execute. Basically, under 50% is when you want to use this, but not quite. The sweet spot for this is around 30 to 25%. So you want to use it about there. But anything under 50%, it will do more damage than it does initially. Executioner does 400% extra damage. This one does 300% extra damage. So this is slightly weaker on single target, but this one has an additional effect. This will actually hit all nearby targets, and they will take 78% of the damage inflicted on the primary target. So instead of just hitting one target like this, when he's low health, light attack, hit, just one, this hits all of them. Everybody gets hit. So this is deliberately chosen for its AOE application in Execute. And just bear in mind, of course, the damage you do to the target reflects on how much you do to everybody else. So if you hit this target here, it's not going to hit them for much, because he's got a lot of health. If you hit a low health target, everybody gets hit for a lot more. As you can see here, high health, everyone gets hit for about 2k. Low health, everyone's hit for between 19 and 30, depending on how hard you actually hit with your crit. So 40 here, 28 on everything else. Just bear in mind, the AOE can't crit, but the crit damage you do from your main target can make the rest of the hits stronger. Very, very important indeed. This is an AOE build, so that is extremely useful alongside your bleed in area of effect as well. Of course, we have our single target Wreck and Blow and daggers, but our other abilities do present us massive, massive advantages in area of effect situation in terms of getting rid of things really, really quickly. Flawless Dawnbreaker, of course, is our front bar ultimate. Now, we don't technically use this, although you can if you want to. It's quite cheap. It's 106 ultimate for us. It basically fires off this, as you can see. In front of you, enemies will take damage over time, so you can hit all of those. The initial hit, of course, does a lot of damage, and the 5-second damage over time as well is quite strong. But after that, when it's active, of course, once you've actually fired it, you will gain 300 weapon damage for 20 seconds, which is nice. So in short-durated fights, this is actually quite beneficial. And if you can build your ultimate up fast enough, especially if you kill an undead, Daedra, or werewolf, you can borderline spam this in some situations. But for the most part, we're not actually using this ultimate. We have two other ultimates that we swap out depending on the situation. This is mostly used here for passives, or if the target is nearly dead and you don't have enough ultimate for your back bar. Just bear in mind, of course, this has a cast time of 0.4 seconds, so if you try and bar swap with it or animation cancel it, it won't work. That's done on purpose. Back bar, we have double barred bound armaments. You do not have to do this, but the rotation allows for us to put it on both bars and it makes it very, very smooth. Also, not to mention, of course, this does improve our light attack damage and our maximum stamina for being on the bar, so we don't lose the buff when we swap. It's very important for this particular rotation that I will show you later that we have it on both bars, but if you are struggling with it and you just want it on the front bar because you can't keep up with it or whatever, that's absolutely fine. Just bear in mind, of course, if you do activate bound armaments even, and you swap bars, you don't have to have it double barred in order to keep the buff. You just have to make sure you only activate it on the front, of course, because it's not there. But if it is there, you're fine anyway. Now, that will become more apparent when we get to the rotation, but let's just skip over that. That's being double barred. Poison Injection, of course, is next. Bow skill line, 5th ability to unlock, starts off as Poison Arrow, morph it to Poison Injection. This will do damage over time to the target in the form of poison damage, and it will deal up to 100% extra damage when the target is low health. So under 50%, this will start generating more damage, and it will be our passive execute. So keep this up all the time. Very simple. Apply it to the target. Leave it running. Make sure that doesn't run out, and if it does run out, reapply it as soon as you can. The more targets have this, obviously, the better, because in area of effect situations, when you start executing loads of targets, they will die faster. Hurricane is next. It's in our Storm Calling skill line. 2nd ability to unlock. Starts off as Lightning form. Morph it to Hurricane. This does damage over time in the form of physical damage every second. And every 5 seconds, the circle around you that does damage in area of effect will actually grow and grow and grow and do more and more damage. Now, very simply, everyone takes damage. After 5 seconds, it grows. After 5 more seconds, it will grow again. Very simple. Keep that up at all times. And not to mention, of course, this will actually give you a resistance buff. So this will give you Major Resolve and Minor Expedition, a speed buff as well, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5280 and your movement speed by 10%. So while this is active, you do an area of effect damage to anything that is anywhere near it, you're faster, and you've got a resistance buff, so you're a bit tankier as well. Very, very solid damage over time, area of effect ability, really relevant to our setup as well. No, the damage output is not massive, but it will contribute, and it does help one of our sets do a lot of damage. Next up is Critical Surge, and this is a swap out if you prefer. This is the 4th ability down in the Storm Calling skill line. Critical Surge was changed recently, and this is very, very solid indeed. This used to just give us Major Brutality, and the other morph used to just give Sorcery, both of which healed. The other morph of this now actually is a heal for your group. This is for us. So, if you activate this, you'll get Major Brutality, Major Sorcery, and your weapon and spell damage will be increased by 20%. And all critical damage that you do, once a second minimum, can heal you for 3.3k, and that can crit. So activate this, keep it up all the time, and any crits you do will heal you. There you go, 3.4k, 3.4, 5.1. This does consider your heal and receive, by the way. And of course, if you're in a situation where there's loads of damage applying, you'll pretty much heal all the time, every second. You're guaranteed to crit something. Very simple. Anyway, that's one skill. You wait until they're all running. Keep that up all the time alongside your Hurricane, and you should be just fine. In fact, if something's standing inside your Hurricane and you've got this running and you're getting a heal every 1 second, it's quite hard to kill you. Next up, of course, is Endless Hail. This is in our Bow skill line. 2nd ability to unlock. Starts off as Volley, morph it to Endless Hail. If ever I say Volley, I mean this particular skill, regardless of which morph you've chosen. Arrow Barrage did do more damage flat out per tick, but it had a massive downtime inside of our rotation. This was much better for us because it was a longer duration, and when we were swapping bars, it didn't quite fall off before we needed to reapply it for very long. So it was really, really handy. Very simple. Area of effect damage in here. Everything inside of that will take damage every 1 second. It's very, very powerful, especially alongside of our weapon choice. So this, again, more area of effect damage over time alongside this and alongside this. Really handy stuff. Now, our ultimate and our backbar is a flex slot. You can change this out if you prefer. This is more for single target. So single target fights, you want to use the Greatest Storm Atronach. This comes from the Daedric Summoning skill line. and starts off as Storm Atronach, morph it to Greater Storm Atronach. You can choose the other morph instead, which does area of effect damage, but this one is a longer duration and more for single target fights. If you want to use this also for your group, they will get Major Berserk if somebody takes a synergy off of it, and so will your ultimate as well. So that's actually really, really helpful. However, in big area of effect situations, especially if you've got multiple adds, you want to be using Suppression Field. Yes, it does do magic damage, but it ticks every half a second. It's rapid, and it will stun all enemies inside of it, if they can be stunned, for 12 seconds. I don't know if I've got enough ultimate for this. I don't think I have. Nope. Let's see if we can build up some ultimate. We'll cut this and speed it up. Okay, if it wasn't painfully obvious, this is very, 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 very specific. This build is set up for lots and lots of AOE damage over time for a reason, and this one is also a benefit. That will stun everyone inside of it, and everybody takes damage every half a second. It's rapid, very, very fast-paced damage over time, and of course, those crits can actually heal you as well. Very handy indeed. That's your oh shit button in big ad pools to pin everything down and destroy them. Although it's spell damage that is required for magic damage itself, we do have major sorcery, so it's not the end of the world. We do have some passives as well that contribute to it, but above all, it's about the speed that this fires. As you can see there, 1.9 every half a second in area of effect, so that's almost 4k a second, which is actually pretty hefty, especially when you've got buffs and bonuses. You can get that easy up to 5 or 6k a second per target, and again, it will contribute to our overall build. So I do preference Suppression Field in most situations, but if you're single target, you can use Greater Storm Atronach, and if you're killing loads of Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf, you can just double barb Dawnbreaker. It's up to you. Now, passives. A Dark Magic. This one is very simple. Reduces the health, magicka, and stamina cost of your abilities. Get the cost down, you're going to need this. When you hit an enemy with a directly applied Dark Magic ability, you heal for 1.6k. And this can happen every 0.5 seconds based off of your max health. Now, one, we don't have much max health. As you can see, that's 1.6k, and we actually have 16,000 health. So it's actually 10% of your overall. Now, we do use a Dark Magic ability as far as this is concerned for our ultimate, but we're not using any active spam balls, so you don't necessarily need to take this. This one also, after blocking an attack, your next health, magic, or stamina ability is 50% less in cost, so if you do block something, make sure you use a expensive skill afterwards. It's cheaper. This one also, if you activate a Dark Magic ability, you grant the group Minor Prophecy, increasing their crit, spell crit in fact, for 20 seconds. That includes you, by the way, and this does apply to this, so that one you will want. Daedric Summon them, of course, very important. You restore magic if your pet dies. That's not important to us, of course, because we're not using a pet, and this one doesn't actually count. So you can dump this one if you want, but this you will need. Reduce the cost of your ultimate abilities by 15%. Very, very cheap ultis. Get this as soon as possible. Increases your health and stam recovery by 20% for having a Daedric Summoning ability sorted. Not only is this double barred for convenience in our rotation, but this is double barred because we have the bonus on both bars for having this passive here. We have 20% increase to stam recovery on both bars, not one of them. This increases your max health by 8% for having a Daedric Summoning pet active. This is no good either, because this one and this one applies to only pets, and we're not actually using any. By the way, be very careful with this. If you are actively using the pet, you want to be one of two things. You want to be a tank, or you want to be solo, because this taunts the enemy. Be careful. We're not using it in this build, however. Stormcalling, of course. This increases your mag recovery. We're not really using any magic abilities, so that's not that important, but we'll take it anyway, just in case we do. There is a swap out for that. I'll get to that in a moment. Increases your physical and shock damage by 5%. That's very helpful. We are using shock damage from our Storm Atro if you use it, and we are doing lots and lots of physical. Increases your damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% current health they have. So, sorcerers have a burst effect, basically, in their passive. So the higher the enemy's health, the harder you hit. So from 100%, you do 10% extra damage. 90%, you do 9% extra damage. 80%, you do 8%, and so on and so forth, all the way down to 10%, where you do a 1% increase. But we've got very good execute and area of effect, so we actually bring that back up again, even though we lose at the lower health they are. There's lots of classes that are very, very good at execute, especially Nightblades and Templars. We're on the other side of the scale. We're stronger at burst, they're stronger at execute, and they both mix nicely together if you balance your group out that way. This will increase your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability slotted. As you see on our front bar, we have 1, and on our back bar, we actually have 4. Now, this is very important because although Negate Bubble, again, is magic damage, and we don't actually scale most of our skills off of magic damage, we do have the spell damage increase, we do have the major sorcery as well from this skill, so that does actually help this. But above all, this will help us have the extra 2% weapon damage on the front bar, and this will give us an 8% on the back bar. So while we're on the back bar, we do actually have decent weapon damage as well as the front. Now, of course, I said swap out about magic abilities. If you choose to, you can swap bound armaments for this. Soul Splitting Trap. This is very simple. All targets are affected by damage over time. You can utilize that if you prefer. It was on the old setup. It's still very relevant if you choose to, but we are actually double barring bound armaments for ease of use and because flat out it did more damage. But that's actually very helpful when we get to the sets. You'll see what I mean about that then. It's a situational skill, but it does do physical damage over time. I need to swap this back. Now, two-hander, very, very simple. Get every single one of these. Your light attacks and heavy attacks damage up to 3 nearby enemies for 50% of the damage inflicted on the primary target. Very simple. Multiple targets get hit. Or if you heavy attack, multiple targets get hit again. Can't be any simpler. Area of effect. This will grant you a bonus depending on the weapon of choice. We are actually using an axe, which gives us a 16% chance to apply a physical bleed on the target for 6 seconds. That's per target, by the way. So, as you can see here, he has got a bleed and carve on him. And so is he. So is he. So, be aware that this is actually a chance base, but it's very, very high. It's really, really good, especially on your front bar spam and abilities. This does proc a lot. It puts a damage over time on each target that is lucky enough to get this on them. And yes, this does contribute to our overall build. Of course, the sword does increase your flat damage, but we're not going for the flat damage. We're going for as many ticks of damage over time in area of effect or single target as we can possibly get. This reduces the stamina cost of your two-hander abilities. Very good. They're expensive. When you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, your next direct damage attack within 7 seconds deals 10% more damage. That's incredibly important. If you heavy attack, your next direct ability is stronger. So, if you do have to heavy attack, if you're low on sustain for whatever reason, it's not a negative effect because your next ability that you hit, if it's direct, will hit harder. So you're not at a loss there. You can still close the gap. And finally, of course, in the two-hander, increase your stam recovery by a whopping 30% for 10 seconds after killing a target. So, we've got 2.1k recovery already. Add 30% to that. We've got massive, massive recovery as long as things are dying. And because we've got so much area of effect, we are going to kill a lot of stuff. Our recovery is going to be up. Our sustain's not going to be an issue. Bow is very important, of course. Get every single one of these. This will give you an increase bonus to long-range damage from your bow. So if you're further away, you'll do more damage. So that's helpful on the run into the fight or if you're inside mechanics. This will increase your weapon crit on the back bar. This will reduce the cost of their abilities from the bow skill line. This is important because if you do light attack, and you should be because then you can use your bound armaments, you will gain 5% extra damage from your bow damage. So any skills that are running light attacks or heavy attacks. Each one that you do will stack up another 5% up to 5 times, giving you a 25% bonus. We won't benefit from that fully because of the way the rotation is, but we will benefit from some of it. So we do want to get this passive. Make sure you do not miss your light attacks. If you do miss your light attacks, you're going to miss out on your empowered light attacks from your Wreck and Blow on your front bar. You're going to miss out on your Hawkeye on your back bar. You're going to mess up your sets, which are very important. And you're also going to mess up your bound armament. So don't miss your light attacks. Focus more on applying those lights rather than trying to squeeze them in. Make sure they count. Also, hasty retreat. If you dodge roll on the bow bar, you run faster. And that also does work alongside your Hurricane as well. So dodge roll, run faster. You've got minor and major expedition right there. We are using just medium armor, nothing else. So you want every single one of these passives. They all contribute to your overall performance per piece. So this will give you 3 to 8 crit per piece one. So 2.3k there. This will increase your stam recovery and reduce the cost of stam abilities. This will improve your sneaking. This requires 5 pieces, not necessarily 7, but it gives you a 15% weapon damage increase. This will increase your movement speed by 3% per piece one and reduce the dodge roll cost for 4% per piece one. Very important passives indeed. Now, if you choose to use the alternate setup, which I will get to in the gear, you will want the first 3 light pieces bonuses, and you'll want the first 3 heavy bonuses. That is if you choose to go 5-1-1 with the alternate setup. If not, you don't need them. We are, of course, a stage 4 vampire. You don't have to be, but I choose to be by my own choice. I'm comfortable as a stage 4 vampire. I like all these shiny passives here. If you want to take advantage of them, that's for another time. But the two you do want, for stage 3 at least, is stage 2 here for give you a magicka and stam recovery increase of 10%, and undeath, meaning the lower your health goes, the less damage you take. Up to 33% damage reduction while under 50% health. These two are very, very important. We are using Fighters Guild passives because of extra bonuses to our damage. This, first of all, reduces the cost of our abilities. So you've got Barb Trap here, 15% reduction to cost, makes sense. This here increases your weapon damage for each of these abilities on your bar. We actually have 2 on the front bar. So on the front bar, we actually have a 2% weapon damage bonus from our sorc abilities. Plus, we have 3% here and 3% here, giving us an 8% bonus across the board. On the back bar, we have 2, 2, 2, and 2. We've actually got 8% weapon damage on both bars with our sorc and Fighters Guild abilities mixed. Really helpful passives. This is essential. This will give you 9 ultimate if you kill Undead, Daedra, or Werewolf. You are going to kill a lot of enemies, and you will kill Undead, Daedra, and Werewolf all day long, and you'll get loads and loads of ultimate, which means you can spam your Dawnbreaker or your Negate Bubble a lot more. This also increases the damage done to those types of targets by 20% if you hit them with a Fighters Guild ability, including your Dawnbreaker or Beast Trap. So get this as well. Undaunted is very, very important. This will give you 4% resources back for taking any synergy in the game. Take every single synergy you can see. They're beneficial no matter what. Make sure you take them. And of course, we are using one type of armor, so we get a 2% across the board bonus. However, if you choose to go 5-1-1, you'll actually get a 6% bonus across the board, but you will lose a couple of medium passive top-end bonuses. So just bear that in mind. If you do go 5-1-1 with the alternate setup, that's what you'll gain and lose at the same time. Also, just consider if you do go 5-1-1, you can then alter your attributes to put more into stamina and drop some of your health, and you'll still hit the same health amount, but you'll have more stamina output overall. You just have to watch your sustain, because it'll go down a little bit. Choices, though. It's up to you. We are, of course, an orc. We have a 2k stam increase, we have a 1k health increase, we get 600 health back if we use a weapon ability or hit with any damage from a weapon ability. So a light attack, a heavy attack, or a skill. And this can happen once every 4 seconds, and crit, and stacks alongside of our crit surge. And we have a higher weapon damage increase of 258, as well as a sprint bonus and reduction to cost for sprinting. So we're very, very fast. We have high weapon damage, really quick moving, good resistances, wicked heals, high health, and good stamina as well, all at once. And finally, the most important passive in the game, in my opinion, I've said this in every single video ever since I started YouTube, medicinal use. 30% longer potions. We are using weapon pots. You can use whatever you like, depending on your style of play or what you choose to use. You can use the ulti regen potions. You can use health potions. It's up to you, depending on what you need. But if you have crafted potions, they generally last 36 seconds. But this will make them last 47 seconds, which means the cooldown being 45, you can have 100% uptime on all bonuses from your potion. Use them as a buff and don't ever let them run out. Now we're going to go into the gear. So, if you've played this before, you are not going to be disappointed. We are still using the Master's Battle Axe. Do not worry if you don't have this. First of all, there's a guide in the description, so you can go in with some friends and hopefully farm this out. If you don't have access to it, and if you aren't ready for that stuff yet, don't worry, you can use agility instead. Weapons count as 2 pieces if they're 2-handers, giving you a massive stamina bonus, which was updated with this patch. Also, same applies on the back bar, so you get the bonus on both bars. If you don't have the Maelstrom bow, then you can use an agility there as well, and that means when you swap, you'll have the bonus no matter what. But, for the purpose of optimizing the setup, we are using a sharpened Master's Axe, and this will increase your cleave damage depending on how many targets are available in front of you at the time. So, this initial hit. So, we hit the dummy. 11k, 28k crit. Now we'll hit all of these. That's 36 to everybody. So, the more targets, the harder it hits. And that is why that particular ability is a damage over time for single target. And this is our spammable. But when it's AOE, this is our spammable. This weapon is incredibly strong for AOE situations. Now, I know there's a lot of builds out there at the moment that are utilizing this for that purpose, but we have a lot more to offer in terms of our overall area of effect, and that is coming with the next set. Now, of course, we are using a Maelstrom bow before we get to the set, and this is very, very important to the setup as well. We were using a Master's bow before. You can still use that if you prefer, but that will only increase your damage on single target. However, in full testing, in many, many different scenarios, this actually overperformed. The damage output on single target was very, very close. This was ever so slightly higher by about 1k, but because this increases the strength of your volley, which is an area of effect ability, in area of effect situations, this outperformed massively. So the Maelstrom bow is back, and this is what you need to keep on the front. So sharpened on the front, infused with a weapon and spell damage glyph on the back. These two are very important. Again, if you don't have these, agility will do fine, and you'll just have to make sure the traits are correct. This increases your volley every tick. Every single tick of damage, it will get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And as you can see, of course, we're not focused on just single target. We have this for AOE. Our back bar weapon boosts it, and our front bar weapon boosts our AOE. Now, the set we're using is, of course, a Xynode. Now, this gives you a crit bonus, a stam recovery bonus, which is nice. And when you deal damage with a damage over time effect, you apply a stack of Blight Seed to your target for 5 seconds. At 20 stacks, it will explode doing disease damage and will damage all enemies nearby. Now, at 20 stacks, once it blows up, this can't be applied again for another 2 seconds. So there's only a 2-second cooldown. Now, the trick to this is to try and get as many damage over time ticks in as possible, as fast as possible, to make this explode. This was altered in this update, where before, if 2 people used it, there would be 2 instances of this bonus on the target, and they could make 2 explosions. Now, you can't do that anymore, but it's not actually enough, because what they did instead is they've made it so that every tick of damage that you or the other person does contributes to the same stack, which means the explosions are faster. Ad pulls will go down quicker. So, all you need to do, if you put a damage over time on this target, for example, keep an eye out on the blue damage over time ticker on him. You can see a blue one there, ticking up every 1 tick of damage. It's now up to 4, 5, and eventually it will explode. Now we'll just make sure we get another tick on there. We'll make it a bit faster. We'll put 2 dots on, and you'll see him explode in a moment. That's what we're looking for. There's the explosion, and as you can see, every enemy got hit there. Now, this is why it's really important, because you want as much area of effect damage over time as you can possibly get, because if you do, then this happens instead. Watch very carefully. Boom! Boom again. Every single one of those is a bomb. Very simple. As you can see, they are dropping rapidly. So the more adds in a pull, the better, because every single one of them takes that effect, and every single one blows the other one up. They're still going off. Boom, boom, boom. Absolutely mental. So your single target damage is actually very, very good, but the more adds in the fight, the more bombs you have to hit the enemy with more damage with. It's nuts. So make sure you have the 5 pieces on your body in whatever order. So you can have it on your jewelry, your armor, anything you want. We're not using a monster set. But if you are using the alternate set, which I'm going to get to after I've explained all the gear, you can, of course, put this again wherever you want, but you must make sure you have all 5 pieces active. For this particular setup, you can't go wrong. Put it wherever you want. The other set is, of course, Reliquin. This is more for single target fights. This will give you crit, 5% increased damage to all, and that's in Dungeons, Trials, and Arenas, by the way, and it'll give you 1k stamina. The 1k stamina is only if you have the perfected version. If you don't have the perfected version, you're just 1k down. That's all. That's the only difference. But every 1 second minimum, if you do a light attack, remember light attacks are important for this setup, you will stack a damage over time spinning wind on the target, and it can stack up to 20 times. As long as you keep your light attacks up, this will continuously spin, doing 1 tick every second, which will contribute to a Xynode. However, if you drop your light attacks for more than 5 seconds, or heavies, you will lose the entire stack, and it's no good to you. If you can't keep up those light attacks, take it off. However, you need to practice your light attacks for bound armaments, so get practicing. However, you've got some choices. You can, of course, use Automaton. If you don't have any trial gear whatsoever, this is very, very nice, helps to all physical damage, very solid results indeed. Briarheart is also a good choice, but wasn't quite as strong as Automaton. So these two are actually really, really good choices. There was some other stuff. Deadly was not too bad. Defiler was pretty good, especially with the fast proc. And also Pillar of Nirn was very, very nice, especially since the bleed that comes out for it is actually area of effect. So if you want to go for ad pulls and you don't have access to certain content, then I would probably go Pillar of Nirn or Automatons, depending on which one you've got to hand, whichever one you can get quickest. They're both very, very nice choices. Also, Alkosh, if you do have access to trials, does give you a frontal area of effect, damage over time effect every single synergy, and can rapidly proc this set as well. So if you can't get used to these light attack bonuses and keep those wins up, you've got some options. You've got some flat sets, you've got one that gives you a proc in AOE, and you've got Alkosh, of course, which benefits you, your group, and does lots and lots of area of effect. But flat out, if you're going for your main target plus area of effect combined, then Alkosh already is probably your best option. Now, if you don't have access to these weapons here, what you can do, of course, is go agility here, agility here. You can use a Krag monster set with a shoulder as well, which will give you another damage over time effect, which will make a Zerblight fire faster. You can then put a Zerblight on the body, and then the jewelry is entirely up to you. There's lots of different sets in the game that give you 3 bonuses, or 3-piece bonuses that you can take advantage of, but what I'd recommend is that you try and get yourself into a normal trial, and even if you can't use Reliquin or even access a full set, try and get 3 pieces. So if it's 3 pieces of body or whatever, and you put a Zerblight on the jewelry, it's entirely up to you, but 3 pieces is what you've got left now, so the choice is honestly yours. You can craft something, or you can just use a 3-piece trial bonus for the Minor Slayer. The choice is honestly yours. But if you want to go flat out, obviously, we've explained what you need to use. Now, champion points. Then I'm going to show you a demonstration. Same as pretty much everything else for the red stuff. You can change these depending on the content if you like. So, 72 points into Ironclad for 23% reduction to direct damage. 64 and 64 for Elemental and Hardy resistance. 13% for both. Thick Skin, 51 points to give us a 19% dot reduction as well. And, of course, Unchained means that if you do break free, which you will have to do occasionally, your next stamina ability is 80% cheaper. So use something really expensive here. 90 points in quick recovery to increase our healing receive. Plus, we have the Field Physician passive, which gives us less damage intake when we are resurrecting people. 44 into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 75 into Tenacity to give us a increase to our heavy attack return. Don't forget, if you heavy attack, you do more damage with your next direct attack. 14% into Stam recovery, so 75 points into there as well. 72 into Tumbling to give us a dodge roll reduction, and 4 points in Shadow Ward just to spend the last points, and then that will give us the Treasure Hunter passive, because I'm sure you're going to be farming loot with this, which means you get better loot from chests. 66 into Master Arms to increase the amount of direct damage we do, and we do a lot. 11 into Physical Weapons Expert. Our light attacks are boosted a lot. We do need to take advantage of this. For having 75 points in this tree, by the way, you do unlock the Butcher passive, which means your lights and heavies do more at low health. 48 into Thermaturge to increase our damage over time, which we have a lot of. Increases your crit damage here by 21% with 61 points in here, giving us a 100% bonus across the board with our Mundustone and everything combined. 35 into Pearson to make sure that we hit cap on the nose pretty much if we have all buffs and bonuses applied, because we do have a penetrating bonus on our set. We have actually a sharpened weapon. 49 points into physical, poison, and disease damage as well. Now, we do have these 2 passives as well for having so many points in here. When things are off balance, we'll do more damage. And, of course, when you fall low in your health, if you don't die, you get faster ulti regen. Very, very helpful indeed. Now, the rotation is going to be quite simple. First of all, we're going to make sure our bound armament is on. Make sure that's active. We'll make sure our resistance buff is active. But you can normally fire that once you start your rotation. It's entirely up to you, but you don't want to run in a fight bare with no resistances on. But first of all, this must be on. Then Beast Trap, and start on your back bar. Volley, light attack, poison injection, light attack, hurricane, light attack again. We're going across the board, right to left. Bound armament, swap bar. That will make more sense once we start hitting stuff, because that will fire. Then, light attack, carve, light attack, wreck and blow 4 times. Light attack, bound armaments, light attack, beast trap, swap. Now that's the order, so you can slow that down and rewind it or whatever. But I'm now going to demonstrate it. So again, bound armaments must be on, beast trap down, volley, light, poison, light, hurricane, light, throw your daggers, swap. Light carve, light 4 wreck and blows. 2, 3, 4. Light daggers, throw them, light, beast trap, swap. Start again. Light volley, light poison, light hurricane, light daggers, swap bars. Light carve, light 4 wreck and blows. 1, 2, 3, 4. Light daggers, beast trap, swap. Repeat, 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 repeat. Now, every time you swap to your back bar, by the time you finish your light attacks correctly, your 4 daggers will be ready to throw. Once you finish your front bar rotation, just before you're about to fire your beast trap and before you fire your daggers will be ready to throw again. Every rotation, you'll be able to fire one. Now, there will be a time where this is run out. So, you still activate it in the same order, but instead of throwing a dagger this time, it will just reapply it ready for your next bar to throw again. Simple as that. Yes, of course, if you want to be really complicated about it, you can activate it and then try and fire it and all that good stuff. But just keep that button pressed in the same order every single time. You will never mess it up. Also, make sure you keep this up if you're actively using it, because that will help you heal off of damage. So every 33 seconds, try and squeeze that in. Failing that, just swap it out for Resolving Vigor and heal whenever you need to heal. The choice is yours, but that rotation stays static the whole time. Now, as you can see here, this is a single target fight. So I'm going to just hit him a little bit and you'll see some damage coming out, and this is basically what it looks like. Looks quite nice. Very straightforward. And Azure Blight obviously fires from my dots. But how does that work in an area of effect situation? Well, basically, you stop spamming with Wreck and Blow. Instead of 4 of these, with 1 of these, you just do Cleave and Light Attack 5 times. You don't Wreck and Blow. So, in this fight over here, you would literally just run in, drop as many dots as possible, and spam the hell out of this. And when they get low health, that's when you start executing instead. Ta-da! And that's the difference between your single target and your AOE. Now just consider, of course, if a couple of these are up against this target, they are going to be turned into bombs. They will blow up and do more damage to him. Single target, you can actually hit anywhere between 76 and 80k, which is quite nice. Depending on crits, of course, and depending on your light attacks, because on the PTS at the moment it's a little bit buggy and sometimes they don't fire, which is a pain in the ass. But you're looking at around 76 to 80k. With the non-trial setup, you can get a comfy 65 to 68. And if you have a couple of ads in the room, that 80k goes up to about 85, 90. So it goes really, really high. So make sure your tanks are experienced enough to keep those ads close, because you can utilize them to do more damage to him. So, hopefully that helped. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully now better understanding how to approach this particular build. Take advantage of your area of effect damage over time. Keep your buffs up and keep spamming that cleave if there's too many enemies to hit with a Wreck and Blow. You will do so much damage. So, thank you very much for watching, of course. If you are not subscribing on YouTube, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside of the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com. Don't forget, of course, I do a live stream on Twitch every day from 10 PM UK time, unless I say otherwise on Twitter. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the build, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.